Hello, humans. Welcome to the Harmony and Humanity podcast, where we're all about highlighting the common ground we all share. We're inspiring conversations that lead to real world harmony and understanding. I am Amethyst Herrick. I'm joined here by Dr. Lino Martinez. Hey, Lino.
Hello, hello.
And also by Jasmine Vine. Hello, Jasmine.
Hello, hello.
Jasmine's feeling a little under the weather,
Or
but
a lot
we
a
kind of a
lot
lot.
under the weather.
So we are three transgender humans combining science, spirituality, and lived experience, all with the purpose of showing that we have much more in common than what separates us. So in today's live stream, we're talking first of all about tolerance, which will be interesting. We found a comment. I think it was on Yahoo, maybe, Lino. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So we'll ask each other tons of questions because that's what we do. But if you're joining us live, we'd love for you to give us questions, give us comments, make it interactive because you have the power to drive the stream in whatever direction you want. If, however, you're catching this replay, by all means, or by just one mean anyway, by typewriting or typing, tell us what you thought in the comments section below. So let's get on to what we were talking about. So if I pull up this... Oops, what did I do with it? If I pull up this comment, I found it. Oh, no, it came from Newsbreak. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So, yeah, newsbreak.com. Do you have this up, Lino? Do you want to read it?
I don't have it up. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I don't have it up. Yeah.
That's
Are we
fine.
able to share the screen on it or just read it out?
I'm going to read some out here. So,
Yeah.
this comment that we saw here, it comes from, not going to tell the person's name other than Betty. She says, I thank you, President Trump, for helping the women that know we were created by God. Woman, even Adam, man to have children as only a man and woman does. SIC, I should have had a big, that the female gender will not be bullied or harmed in restrooms and sports by a man. Prayers for this nation.
Uh-huh.
Let's start by talking about tolerance. Jasmine, you brought up the paradox of tolerance. What were you thinking about here?
First of all, I just want to acknowledge the whole pajamas sick situation. So don't mind me if my voice just conks out or if I start having a sneezing fit. The paradox of tolerance, I really just wanted to hear what everyone's opinions were on it and do a little bit of a brief overview of what it is. And it's something that I hear quite a bit in when I talk about my way of handling hate. Gosh, I really hope my voice doesn't conk out. Goodness gracious. But people will bring up the paradox of tolerance to say you can't be tolerant of intolerance, otherwise intolerance will be the bigger force, essentially.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know how I feel about it. I mean, that's basically where I was coming from this. And my own insecurities, or whatever we call it. I made a post recently where I was talking about all the spike in hate recently that's come along with Trump's inauguration. And for a little bit there, I actually felt kind of hopeless. And seeing this, like, all of the things that he's enacted, being a part of Project 2025, and then seeing where that could go to the point that it could literally legislate execution of trans people. My brain was going there and was like, oh my gosh. And I was feeling kind of hopeless with it because my general response to hatred comes from a place of safety. And it comes from a place of like the long-term perspective and trying to get people to regulate, like to co-regulate and to show mutual vulnerability and understanding. And I just had this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, these people that have been talking about the paradox of tolerance and criticizing me about my approach to hate comments, I just had this moment where I was like, what if they're right? Like, holy shit. So that's where I'm coming from today. That's what I wanted to bring to the forefront.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Go ahead, Lino. You're a psychologist. What do you think on this?
What do I think about what you first read, or what Jasmine just said right now, as far as like the the whole paradox of tolerance, or having to be tolerant of intolerance?
Hold on,
Let's
can
hear
I
the
just
latter. Yeah.
Lino, Amethyst, I mean, is Lino's microphone doing a weird thing for you?
It's a little bit fuzzy, but I don't know that we're gonna address it necessarily right now. But
Okay.
Okay, you can hear me right now though?
we're hearing you. You're just a little
Yeah,
scratchy.
goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, hopefully we can get through this stream. Sorry about that. Maybe it's a connection issue that I'm having here.
Yeah. We'll
Um,
Yeah.
figure it out.
but feel free to cut me though if you can't hear me at all, and you could just
I can
maybe.
hear you.
Okay, great. So, what is my response to what you first read, or what Jasmine said, and in regards to being tolerant of intolerance, and also the being insecure and having these feelings come up in regards to this?
I think let's talk about tolerance. I mean, I think what we looked at, that comment there was clearly filled with, well, so here we go. Originally, you dropped that comment in the group, and we were, all three of us were like, oh my god, what a load of ignorance.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's, if I understand correctly, Jasmine, that's where you ended up saying, well, gosh, what about this paradox of tolerance? Because at least for my part, I was like, I have no reason to listen to this person, but don't I? I mean, does that make me intolerant if what I want to do is just go, listen, I'm going to listen to you, lady. Listen, I'm not going to listen. Well, anyway, somebody's listening.
Listen, I'm not going to listen.
Right.
Well, when and maybe we could read it one more time so that
Yeah.
our listeners and our watchers can I guess feel into it one more time. But when I first read it, before we actually go a little deeper with being intolerant or being tolerant with intolerance,
Yeah.
I wanted to first ask Jasmine and Amethyst your feelings initially when you read this. When you read this, because for me, when I read this, I felt like there's just so many people that are misinformed. It's like, what do they think we are gonna do? And my mind just went 100 different ways. And first, I mean, who are the ones that need to be safe? You know what I mean? And it's like, some stuff just didn't make sense at all. It's like, hold on a minute. So she's saying that what she is saying, that Trump is bringing people together with the way it should be, which is the way Adam and Eve have been designed for man and woman only.
Right.
And then all of a sudden she changes that to read that the restroom part again.
Yeah. I mean, it says, that the female gender will not be bullied or harmed in restrooms and sports by a man. Prayers for this nation.
By a man. So in saying that, one of the things I thought of, hold on a minute. So she would be comfortable if they got rid of all gender restrooms, right? Make it the way it was before.
Right.
And and enforcing trans people to go into their birth.
Yes.
So I would be forced to go into a woman's bathroom.
Right. Right.
And that would make her feel more comfortable.
Apparently.
Seeing this
Yeah.
than a trans woman.
She would feel less bullied or harmed.
That makes zero sense to me.
Doesn't it?
It does. So it just shows me just how much ignorance there's out there, and ignorance is basically a lack of education. And so there's just a lot of people out there that are misinformed. They're still living off of their own fears, things that have been fed, and unfortunately, the new man in office is feeding a lot of people's fears and insecurities, and making them come up with these ideas based on what he's spitting out politically to the world, and by doing that, it's just causing more fear and more disruption, and just things are not making sense.
Yeah.
Not making sense. And if she's thinking like that, and that stuff is in Newsweek, I mean, I can't imagine how many billions of other people are thinking this way and jumping on that train.
Right. Right. I mean, I think that's the last part of that, at the very least, is a clear reference to, Trump's executive order to define both sex and gender. And I mean, I did a whole, it was about a 50-minute lecture this past Saturday about, my thoughts on that executive order. But I mean, just as far as the ignorance goes, the ignorance is to assume that the transgender women are going to harm other women. And I've brought this up several times, and I think, Lino, maybe you said this, or Jasmine, you did, that people are frightened. And I think it's okay for people to be frightened. Well, not that I want this to happen, but that people are frightened of being assaulted. I don't think that necessarily is fear of people who are transgender. I mean, they're very different. We in Western society, at the very least, we have a lot of very aggressive people. I might actually point out the man who's currently in office, as you said, it's Lino, has been accused of sexual assault. And yet we're being blamed for it. We're taking the fall for it.
That's just mind-boggling to me.
Oh, it is. Yeah. I mean, taking the fall, I think, is a good way to put this, too. I have a friend who once said, what she sees the transgender community in general taking the heat for now is centuries of patriarchy. That we're being called the aggressors because we're different, when the aggressors are, our brothers and fathers who have come before us and perpetrated the aggression. Not me. I mean, so we're taking the heat, though. Go ahead, Jasmine.
What's interesting about this as well is that, to Lino's point, they never consider transmasculine people. It's always transfeminine people.
Yeah, right.
And so they make these sweeping ideas and don't understand the consequences of that. And it's even in the executive order, like Amethysta, I watched your 50-minute video. I watched that in full yesterday. And even going through that executive order, he doesn't mention transmasculine people at all, apart from one little part that says and vice versa, like in some paragraph hidden somewhere.
Okay.
But all the focus is on protecting women, but women don't need protection from transfeminine people. They need protection from men, and that's what people are actually concerned about.
Right.
So it's really interesting that they're signing this type of stuff and having actual men, trans men, being legally obligated to use women's restrooms. It is nonsensical. But they don't consider those ramifications.
So I would say, I mean, there are definitions. I had to put those in air quotes but there are definitions both for sex and, sex anyway. Technically a definition for gender. And I guess all my point is that those are supposed to cover all humans, right? So, I mean, transmasc people would be in there, but the executive order, of course, is titled Defending Women. Starts off with defending women from gender ideology extremism. And returning biological truth to what, it's like, it's all being couched in terms of defending women, which is ridiculous, of course, given the people who wrote the thing. So anyway, it is ridiculous. Why would transmasc people not be included in that? The thing is that I think it's all a big sham. is all it is.
I think so. And just to get
Fear-mongering.
the mass population's attention away from what their hidden agendas are,
Yes.
and
Yes.
putting us out there, a big, massive group of minorities, and it's easy to attack us. And so it brings the attention here so that it takes the attention away from what they're doing.
Right.
I've heard that being referred to a few times, actually, where it's like they're treating trans feminine people as this boogeyman that we all need to pay attention to and keep under control and whatnot. Meanwhile, the idea is that they're potentially consolidating power to reduce civil rights and to have the president have more power than they should have, essentially creating a fascist dictatorship, which is interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think the purpose is, Lino?
What do I think the purpose is? Oh, I'm not even going to begin to know, because I'm just I can't. I mean, I can speculate. I mean, it's all about power and greed in this office and what's going on currently. And it's very apparent to me and a lot of other people. And so it's greed, and greed isn't always the way to. There's a lot of repercussions to greed, and so eventually things will come falling down. And it's only a matter of time, really. It's only a matter of time, and I mean, there could be all kinds of stuff that can occur because of this type of magnitude of greed that's occurring right now. And so that's why it's a really good idea to really focus on your mental health and raising your vibrations, so that we don't succumb to a lot of these power struggles that's going on right now, and really stay true to your own word and your own energy. Even if it means, as Amethyst, as you did, even my roommate, getting rid of all your socials, whatever it means, that's still protecting your energy. And that's still keeping your vibration up, because if it lowers your vibration and brings you negativity to be a part of what's going on right now, then just by all means, you protect yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So Valentina dropped us a comment. It says, the ultimate purpose is cis male whiteness. Yeah. I mean, if you read the purpose of that executive order in particular, I mean, I did a whole live stream, so I'm not going to recap all of that. But if you read the purpose of that, it talks about how ultimately, like, the oppression of women, so ultimately, the oppression of women need to be defended by trans femme people, really ultimately for the sake of perpetuating a patriarchy. There are cherished values, including women staying in the home kind of thing. It was really fascinating to read this executive order and go, can they really be that explicit? Could they really? I mean, it's stunning to me that somebody would write that and go, yeah, we should totally put that out there. Oh yeah, no, people will really think we're defending women when we say, let's make sure that sex-based opportunities, as they put them, are perpetuated. Because the subtext there is that the sex-based opportunities for women are lower pay, fewer chances for promotion, ending up in domestic abuse shelters, which they call out. This is a sex-based opportunity. Like, I continue, every time I think about this, I go, wow, like, every woman should read this and go, what the hell? Really? This is not what I want out of life. So I'm stunned. I mean, I'm stunned that it could have come out. So I agree with you, Valentina. The purpose is to perpetuate our existing patriarchy. I can't come up with any other reason. We are a boogeyman. Well, the trans femmes anyway. Jasmine and I are boogie women. How about if I throw that out there? Right?
Spooky, spooky.
I think what Trump is afraid of is that you're going to go and sneeze on somebody.
Well, don't worry. It's not COVID.
Good. Unfortunately, sneezing on people is not a sex-based opportunity. It's equal opportunity. Sneeze just goes everywhere.
Just had to mute because you made me cough.
I thought so. Sorry. So anyway, that's a weird thing. So What else do we want to say on that?
Oh my gosh, there's so much that could be said on that. But the thing
I
that
know.
this creates is a lot of fear. A
Yes.
lot of fear, a lot of division. And I'm seeing there's, I don't know if either of you, well, I mean, Amethyst, you're not on Meta anymore,
Mm-mm.
but there's a Facebook page, the Trans Army, I think it's called. And they are posting some pretty interesting things that I've noticed. Like very, very fear-based, very much they are afraid that they're going to be mass incarcerated and basically executed, and they're coming up with battle plans and strategies and like to fight back and everything. And reading it is like, prior to the inauguration, I would have went, oh my goodness, that's a little bit out there, like come on. And then post the inauguration and seeing all the executive orders put forward, I'm like, if they actually start getting signed into law, as in like in federal law, and
Mm.
some of these things actually stick, I'm like, whoa, is a fight like actually necessary? Which has shook my core identity, is what
Yeah.
I was talking about before. That's shaken me because the insecurities I was talking about, it's an insecurity around my leadership, because I feel like I'm very much a pacifist in how I approach situations, which I don't want anyone to mistake for weakness or, lying down and getting allowing people to beat me up. That's not the case. But I definitely take a compassion and empathy over anything else approach wherever possible. And I think what scared me is seeing all of this come into place. I'm like, is that like, I almost feel irrelevant. Like, whoa, is my place in how I approach this necessary? Because I feel like I'm very much a peacetime leader. And I'm like, do we need a wartime leader? Like, it's really challenging me. I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, right.
The only thing I would have to say, I mean, Trump was inaugurated on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, right?
Is that
And
why he
so
referenced him in his inauguration speech?
almost certainly, yeah. Well, I mean, and was it referenced? Because I didn't watch it, but was it referenced in an ironic way at the very least?
No. It was like,
Oh,
we want to see Martin Luther King's dream come true. Like, he used his speech.
but
I'm like,
by sowing fear, discontent, well done, division.
yeah.
Because there's a whole. I mean, Martin Luther King. Kingian nonviolence, I believe, is ultimately what it ended up being called. And it's not that being nonviolent means not taking action.
Mm.
And so, I mean, it means not striking the first blow at the very least. So, I don't know. I mean, I think that's the only comment I would make. I wouldn't want to say necessarily that that leadership is only going to entail like punching somebody or picking up a rifle.
I really don't think that is the case. And I've had a little bit of time to think about it after my little meltdown. And I do really think that approach is still very much necessary. It's what this podcast is all about. It's identifying and strengthening the shared humanity that we have.
Right.
And that is still extremely important for the long-term benefit of humanity.
Right.
Not just the trans community, but humanity in general. So I don't think that that's irrelevant. I think it's very, very important. But where people draw the line is very interesting. Because a lot of people have said to me for years, like, oh, you're just placating them. You're no mercy for like this kind of thing, no tolerance for intolerance, and they like take that really strong stance against hatred and bigotry. And whilst I understand that, I don't think that it is helpful in a long-term sense. I think it meets dysregulation with dysregulation and doesn't have a positive impact. In saying that, though, where these people are often coming from is like, we're under attack, and like, if this person is punching me in the face, I'm going to defend myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's often like a example that people use. And in that scenario, I'm like, all bets are off. If you are under immediate physical danger, you need to defend yourself. Like, you can't just use kindness and, you know, empathy in that scenario. You need to run away from there or defend yourself if necessary. But my approach has always been kindness, empathy, compassion, wherever possible. And I still think that is very much possible in a lot of spaces. But I wonder, is my threshold for putting up with that kind of stuff higher than other people's, perhaps? Because if I was being like detained for using a public bathroom because someone recognized me and said, oh, that's a trans person using a bathroom, I would feel extremely, extremely threatened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how a lot of people are feeling. So I don't know what the answer is. I'm just like, I've been really questioning a lot of things.
Yeah. I'm watching you thinking there, Lino. What's going through your head?
Well, the first thing I was thinking right now, honestly, is can you hear me? Because I know I was having
Yes.
issues with my
Yes.
mic. Okay, good. Um, Jeez. And you want to know what I was looking for right now?
Yeah.
I'm looking, and what I'm thinking is I'm looking for a Martin Luther King Jr. speech that he talked about hate and love.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm gonna find it right now so I can repeat it. And it's just so, to me, it's just so hypocritical. I don't know.
Well, so keep. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, let me find this. I'm gonna find it right now and
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah.
One moment.
Yeah. Because my big thought on this, and first of all, Valentina now says it's difficult. The only thing she can compare it to is the Black Lives Matter movement. And when it came about and the violence against black people really escalated, it is difficult not to get violent. No doubt.
Yeah.
The only place I would challenge that is that I have yet to see like widespread violence against transgender people. And that's not to say it wouldn't happen. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not going, and I don't want to wait until it happens, of course. I am, when I think we get to the point where people are like, okay, we need to make the transgender army that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to laugh at that. I certainly would say oftentimes I think we fear before we think. I'm not even going to say oftentimes. I think fear will drown out any sense of rationality whatsoever. And I think we have a reason to be afraid. But I keep on seeing people that go, oh my gosh, we're all going to be rounded up. And I've said some of these things. But we certainly have to respond to what's happened. I don't know if we don't want to.
I feel like I would challenge that a little bit.
Okay.
Just a teensy bit, because
Yeah, go ahead.
I think some of that we've acknowledged previously that we all in this stream at least come from a background of relative privilege in like the area that we live in. For instance, that kind of thing. I wonder whether, because I don't notice as much of it either. We have Trans Day of Remembrance. We know how many people are at least reported to be murdered around like transgender violence and all of that.
Yeah.
But other than that, it doesn't seem like too big of a threat. my brain is trying to latch on to where my thought process was going. Hold on a second. Black trans women who are sex workers, for example. Like I've got a friend that I talk to who meets that category, who lives in a red state. She notices a lot more of it than I do. And I do wonder whether that's because of our relative like privileges and where we're situated and all of that. So that's one thing that I'd question with that. There was another thing, but I don't know if my brain's going to find it. I'm working on like very limited CPU here.
So where I would have gone with that, or where I was going to go with that, is that when you look at Black Lives Matters, that is an important movement because the police are granted the use of violence. We tell the police, you go ahead and use physical force. Let me say physical force, not violence. We give them the use of physical force so that we don't have to. So I don't have to go out and beat somebody up if they don't pay a contract or something like that. So there's a distinction now when I look at like this executive order. The distinction is that this is not law. This is not, nobody has legally been given the job to initiate the use of physical force against transgender people. So we can generate an army, as it were, and it's not the same to me as Black Lives Matters. When you're talking about Black transgender women in particular, like that's, they have a really hard time. I think in part because of entrenched racism and exactly what I'm talking about. The police who have
it's the intersectionality of it.
It is. Yeah. And I'm not saying we shouldn't worry. Once again, I'm going to say, I'm not saying we shouldn't worry. And at the same time, we need to respond to what's going to happen, not to what is happening, as opposed to, always saying we're screwed. I think it's fear. And this fear divides us. I mean, just to get back to tolerance, I mean, my original reaction, Lino, to that comment that you sent, I was like, I would never like this person. I would never want to talk to this person. I would never have anything to do with this person. And it's like, well, what I'm doing is responding to one person, one comment, and not to absolute reality here. This is one person's ignorance. So Valentina says the anti-trans rhetoric now empowers law enforcement and regular citizens to escalate hate and violence against the community. No, it doesn't. They will be in the wrong. Law enforcement will be in the wrong. They are, for lack of a better way of saying this, law enforcement can say somebody was perpetrating a crime, and that was why I decided to use excess physical force. And I don't disagree. Valentina says it's best to say to stay vigilant. Absolutely. I'm not saying don't worry. Our situation is a little different.
So
I think.
Oh, go ahead, Jasmine.
Did you get it?
Yeah, go ahead, Jasmine.
Oh, I was just going to say with what Valentina commented, I tend to agree just because of the corruption that can happen in those spaces. Like, is it wrong? Absolutely. But I know, like Amethysta, the thing that you were a part of recently, like the expert witness case, that type of stuff, even when there's like straw man arguments, that type of stuff still happens in our courts.
Of course
like
it does.
Corruption.
But there was a crime.
Yeah. But I worry about that becoming more of a widespread thing and
Agreed.
seeing because I think a lot of people see the similarities between what's happening now versus what was happening in 1930s in Germany, like that kind of side of things. I don't think it's going to be as blatant as that. I think it's going to be more hidden, and that's what actually concerns me the most. is that I really don't think there's going to be concentration camps and people like rounded up in the streets if they're trans. I don't think that's going to happen. But I can see a road to basically existing outside as a trans person being criminalized. And that's what scares me. I'm not being very hopeful here,
No. Well, there are a lot of legal challenges, is all I would say. Valentina does say they are in the wrong when it happens to BIPOC, but it happens. Yes, it is wrong. I'm hopefully nobody is taking this to mean that I think the cops are in the right because we've given them the duty to initiate the use of physical force, because I'm not. That is definitely wrong. There are definitely cops who go way the hell overboard and will be aggressive even against people who have not perpetrated crimes. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, Jasmine, with the guy in New York. Very true. Yeah. There is a legal system now, a justice system now that at the very least, provides some sort of a framework for that. So, Lino, you found the speech though, because if we got off
I want to get
this topic, I'm not really sure.
I found it too. I mean,
I just want to mention one little thing.
We need to go back to. We need to go back to Martin Luther King's. What's that?
At some point during this stream, I want to have something where we can say what we can do and the hope that we have what we can do despite stuff. Because there is a lot of fear, and I'm succumbing to it. Like, you can tell from this conversation, I'm like, holy shit, I don't 100% know what to do. So I'd love to do a little bit of brainstorming on that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not just going to leave this on a note of like, oh my gosh, we're doomed. The corrupt justice system is going to kill us all. Like, no.
Definitely going back to the way that Dr. Martin Luther King felt that he wanted people to connect. And here's some of his incredible quotes. So, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
Yeah.
I have decided to stick to love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Hate paralyzes life. Love releases it. Hatred confuses life. Love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life. Love illuminates it. He said that nonviolence would create a beloved community in redemption. He also said that people should be willing to suffer the anger of their opponents without returning anger. Yikes.
I love this.
Yeah. I'm sure that's challenging for a lot of people.
Right.
Very, very challenging.
But he was saying
and it becomes even more challenging when there's so much of it.
And if we can go back to definitely feeling the way that he felt, I mean, things were changing, and we're kind of in a little going backwards a little bit. I think Mercury turned retrograde a little too long.
It's been Mercury retrograde for something like 70 years. Yeah. What happened? That doesn't typically happen. Well, but we can bring this.
That Mercury retrograde has lasted precisely the amount of time as Trump's political career.
But I think we can bring this back around, because Jasmine, you had said, how do we guard against this? How do we feel better about this? Let's leave with a sense of hope. Because we could take this right back to tolerance ultimately. Because I mean, Kingian nonviolence ultimately, I mean, what you just said, experience other people's anger without returning anger, is exactly that. I'm going to have to be tolerant of other people's anger and hear it without going, talk to the hands, whatever, walking away.
That's what people refer to as a paradox of tolerance, though, I wonder.
Yes. I totally think so.
I still want to get like your opinions on that idea, because I think what Martin Luther King Jr. said is so true. Like, it is so true, and that's really what I try to live by. But it seems like the paradox of tolerance directly counters those words. And a lot of people refer to it, I've noticed. Hmm.
Yeah, I think
I want to know what your thoughts are on it.
the paradox. I think the paradox more applies to like a group. Like if you're going to have a forum, if you're going to try to have a if you were going to try to give equal time ultimately, and for what it's worth, I think this was part of why that equal time, what it was, the Equal Time Act. I'm trying to remember what it was called, but ultimately that was dismantled because it was like, well, some of our equal time includes people who would come on and just spit out obscenities and say that everybody was a jerk. So, there's I think that's what the paradox really says, is that in order to be completely tolerant, you have to tolerate people who are going to hate you.
Oh, the paradox of tolerance in general, that philosophical idea is kind of the other way around. This is what I have a challenge with. I'll read something out
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
to deal. Okay, here's a little infographic. I wish I could share my screen, but I don't know how to do that on this. Should a tolerant society tolerate intolerance? And then I've got a little image of like a awkward gesture person. I don't know if we can say that. Saying you want more. We haven't
Go
even
ahead.
spoken about that, for
Yep,
goodness
right.
gracious.
Yep.
You want more tolerance? Respect my ideas. The answer is no, it says. Unlimited tolerance can lead to the extinction of tolerance. When we extend tolerance to those who are openly intolerant, the tolerant ones end up being destroyed, and tolerance with them.
Yep.
Any movement that preaches intolerance and persecution must be outside of the law. Well, what does that mean? Any movement that preaches intolerance and persecution must be outside of the law. And as paradoxical as it may seem, defending tolerance requires to not tolerate the intolerant. This is what is quoted to me all the freaking time when I talk about showing kindness and compassion and not throwing hate back at someone when they've thrown hate at you.
Right.
They quote this and basically say that we'll be destroyed if we all do that. Which is, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know how I feel about it.
That's what I'm saying, though. In order truly to be tolerant, you have to be able to withstand other people's intolerance. You have to be tolerant of people who are intolerant of you. And
That's
so
what
I
this is
get
saying,
it, but I think that's what I read. That's what I hear in it. But because I mean, and I think that's what Martin Luther King was talking about too, in saying, hearing the anger without giving anger back.
Is this like a misquoted thing then, or am I completely misconstruing this?
Well, I'm turning it your direction. If other people were to see me, and I said, well, I'm going to be tolerant of this person spewing obscenities at me, I totally believe the people would go, what is wrong with you, Amy? Be a little less tolerant of this intolerance. So I agree, sooner or later, if you allow everybody who is intolerant to come in, there are certainly far more people, I imagine, who are going to be intolerant of some of the things I say than those who would be completely tolerant of everything I say, in which case my tolerance gets squelched. Because I have to fight every single person who goes against every, anything that I say. So I think they're the same. I'm just coming from a different direction personally, but
where are you confused, Jasmine, with this, or what's
To me, it sounds like the opposite.
also?
Where, hold on, philosophical concepts suggesting that if a society extends tolerance to those who are intolerant, it risks enabling the eventual dominance of intolerance, thereby undermining the very principle of tolerance.
Well, the point there, though, is that the intolerant people may actually have a point. Right? I mean, if but being intolerant means that if your point makes any sense whatsoever, then it has to continually erode the rest of the tolerance. Because you go, well, the guy with your Sig Heil there that you're talking about, you'll have tolerance if you listen to me, certainly. And if you listen to him and go, okay, well, we'll allow you to be what you're doing, then yeah, by necessity, right. The thing is that any tolerance, I think, at the end of the day, any tolerance is not. Like, we'll call it tolerance. But there are always extremes. There will be tolerance is on a spectrum, I think is what I'd say. And no spectrum has a beginning or an end, right? There's just the points that we see on the spectrum at that moment,
Yeah.
I don't know if that went
Okay,
anywhere.
well, that's an interesting perspective to add to it. Because the end of the spectrum that we consider, like, that we are intolerant of intolerance is laws. Like, we don't murder people. We don't, like...
Right.
Do an awkward gesture in Germany. Like...
but yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's just... I just wanted your perspectives on that, because that's often used in contrary to Martin Luther King Jr.'s words. At least
Is it contrary? I don't know.
You know what I was thinking right now while you're chatting? I'm feeling because you said something, Amethyst, right now that kind of made me want to think a little more with the word intolerant. So intolerance and tolerance is the same thing, except with a different energy. With a different focus. Yeah. With a different focus. Yeah, because if you're being intolerant, if you're being tolerant, you're still being intolerant. You're just being intolerant in a more peaceful manner.
Of people who disagree with you. Or I mean, is that peaceful? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's what...
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. I guess so. I mean, if you're not using, like, outward anger or any type of force like that, but you are being... you're being tolerant of other words or behaviors, you're doing it in a more I felt surrendered in a minute, but not surrender. You're not surrendering. You're actually using a stronger force by using your quiet energy and really just protecting yourself by doing that. But also it is a way of protecting yourself. Either way, you're protecting yourself. Whether you're being intolerant or tolerant, it's still a form of protection.
Yeah. There was... what just went through my head? Oh, no, I do remember. I think ultimately it ends up being it always ends up with the best of intentions. Tolerance, I think, has the best of intentions. That you go, we're going to be tolerant of anything. But I think we should also remember that, like, the people in your image there, Jasmine, with their awkward gestures, they never thought they were the bad guys. I mean, they thought ethically they were in the right. And the people who are coming after them going, say, look, we don't do that in this world. We don't just, we don't just round people up and put them in camps. They thought they were in the right too. So, I mean, it's the same thing, like Lino was saying. I think it's a beautiful way to put it. Ultimately, it's the difference is the target, not necessarily the level to which you are really tolerant, unless you can do exactly what I think that quote from Martin Luther King Jr. said, which was to be able to accept anger without giving it back. Because that's the only way you're going to be able to have a real conversation, right? I mean, you can't go into a conversation and all you've got is two people pointing at each other going, you're wrong, you're wrong. It goes nowhere. So, anyway, I'm going to finish it for now.
Because I think sometimes people can view that as a bit of a slippery slope to, like, you know, I'm receiving anger, I'm not giving it back, which is absolutely, like, for sure. But then if you get to a point where it's like, I'm receiving an execution and I'm not giving that, that's like a totally different thing.
Right.
And that's what people generally relate it to, which I think is a different thing. That gets to a much, like, different level. But I'm curious, question for both of you. Let's say, like, scenario, you've received a hateful comment. Let's say it's like the one that we read out in the beginning of this, and you respond to it, you know, showing kindness and compassion and understanding, and you reflect back the feeling and the meaning, and, you know, you don't throw hate back at them. If another trans person were to see that and tell you, oh, you know, you're being tolerant of intolerance and you shouldn't do that and you should stand up for yourself, what would your response be?
Why don't you go first, Lino?
Yeah, you want me to go first?
Heck yeah.
Well, I mean, I've had a similar experience where I think I'd mentioned to the both of you before that there was a trans man that told me that I wasn't, that I was transphobic because I wasn't calling myself they, them, and because I wasn't doing enough for the trans community. And so I just, I the way that I responded to that, which is similar, I just said, well, that's interesting. I never felt myself being hateful of myself, first of all. And I, you know, I'm a transgender person here. I'm a trans man. And I'm sorry you feel that way, you know, and I do the best that I can, having multiple identities from disabled to Latino to, I mean, you know, I can't sit here and advocate for every single checkbox I've checked, you know, that I've had to check, you know. I mean, how about just human? That was the conversation that we've had, Amethyst, where I'd be like, can we just, is there a checkbox for just human? Yeah. And so, I mean, right? But I mean, because of statistics or for whatever reason, they need to know all these things about us. And so in this challenged opportunity that I had to talk to this trans man, I felt that I actually felt bullied at that time, which is interesting because I felt that their agenda, if you want to say it that way, was to not be and to do the opposite. But in forcing someone, you know, to be a certain way or to adopt a certain identity or represent a certain way. And if that person's just saying, well, I've never felt this way, I don't think I'm this way. Well, let me tell you why you are that way. Whoa, that all of a sudden that feels cornered and bullied, you know? So even people in my own community have made me feel this way. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. Let me change this. People can't make you feel a certain way unless that feeling already exists within you. So that feeling came up for me for a reason. And at the end, I realized that what I needed to do was just accept people more for who they are and just love them more, even though it's been a challenge for me. That was a challenge for me. And so in going back to, circling back to your question. Wait, what was your question?
If you were to show kindness and compassion to that kind of thing, and someone were to criticize that and say you're being too tolerant, what would your response be?
You know, it really depends on the way that I feel that sentence coming in. If I feel that they are being, that they are judging me or seeing me a way that I know I'm not, I don't have to respond. I don't have to respond to anybody. I could wish them, I mean, there's actually tons more energy, and if things come from your heart and just send it and just be like, I wish this person so much love. I'm sorry, I'm not going to respond. Delete, you know, exit. But if I feel prone, you know, or I mean, if I feel like I have to respond, I'm going to first make sure that it's coming from my heart space and just be like, okay, well, thank you for letting me know. I'll think about this, you know, thank you for bringing this into my awareness. And so that's pretty much where I would leave it. I don't have to, you know, do a whole paragraph or, you know, tell them my whole history, rather than thank you for showing me something that maybe I'm not aware of. And just leaving it as be, leaving it there.
And if you did that and somebody criticized you for saying that?
Could you give me an example? What type of criticism could come from that?
So if you were to say, like, someone says, oh, bloody, you know, XYZ, pick one of the random things that people commonly say.
Mhm.
And then you say, oh, well, like, thank you for your perspective. I'll, have a think about that. Wishing you all the best, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then another trans person goes, why are you being so freaking nice to this person? They've just said blah, blah, blah. They just said you're a bloody pedophile or whatever.
Sure.
Like, how do you respond to that trans person?
So that feels more like it still feels really defensive and almost combative. Like, so that type of energy, I try not to, or I almost always don't participate in. So if I felt that, I either just won't respond, or if I do, it would be with the heart, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, something, or just don't respond at all. I mean, it's just because it's just gonna keep fueling the fire, fueling their fire, and
Yes.
I'm okay. I don't need to fuel it.
Yeah.
What advice would you give for them to take a more similar approach to that?
What advice would I give them to do a similar approach?
Yeah.
What advice would I give to the person telling me that I'm being too tolerant of intolerant?
basically.
What advice would I give them? I don't know. I guess I don't really. I haven't thought about it. I'd have to feel into this a little more.
I've got an
I'm
idea.
really probing here, aren't I?
I think this is great.
There's
Amethysta says she's got an idea though.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I've got,
don't know.
so this reminds me of I wish I could remember what it was. I think it was one of the Star Wars movies. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. There were a lot of things that my wife and I have talked about where people have said, "God, that was really horrible." Like, what the hell's wrong with whomever? Let's say it was a Star Wars film, and somebody said, "What's wrong with George Lucas? What a weenie for doing all this wrong, messing up my childhood stuff." And our response to that, because like if you were to jump into a Star Wars thing and say, "No, I don't know, I thought it was okay," you will get yelled at, right? They'll be like, "Hey, you're being a little too tolerant of whatever Lucas wants to do." And so my wife, anyway, and I agree with this, is to say something along the lines of, go make your own space opera. I mean, if you don't like this, go find a platform, go and do it. And while this may sound somewhat dismissive, if somebody's going to come after me and say, "Listen, I don't like the way that you are advocating for me," I'm going to go, "Okay, what I need you to do is go and advocate for yourself." Because I'm not going to be the one who's going to do it right, apparently. It's easier. And I know that maybe that's dismissive and maybe it's jerky, but I'm going to say, listen, then I'm not the one for you. I'm not the one who's going to advocate appropriately for you because my style is different.
You know what?
I just
had this memory. It was when I first started podcasting, 4 years ago, maybe the fourth episode or something, and I'd interviewed this super duper spiritual woman that was talking about how you shouldn't meditate and smoke marijuana, and why? Because it lowers your vibration, or it kind of like eliminates some of the clarity that you can have. But some people were commenting saying, "Yeah, but for me, I get more clarity," which probably some people do.
Yeah,
and then
depends
some guy
on the strain.
What's that? Yeah, I mean, it really depends on who you're speaking to. And then some guy commented to me saying, "Hey, a little less for your podcast. You don't know anything about marijuana. Stay in your own lane." And I remember, I was like, "Stay in your own lane." And I remember that I actually kind of it bothered me, and I kept reading it, and I was like, something about this bothers me. It wasn't even the marijuana comment; it was him saying, "Stay in your own lane."
Yeah.
And so then I realized, and this is when I used to comment back. I mean, people don't really, honestly, I don't get hateful comments anymore, thank goodness. But what I ended up saying was, "Dude, you're on my page."
Right.
That's what I said, and that was it. And they didn't comment back. I mean, you're telling me to stay on my lane, but you're on my page. But I felt good once I said that. Now what would I do? I'd just be like, "Oh, whatever." If it came through, right. I don't even want to. But it felt good to tell them.
Yeah. There are some people, if they go far enough, then I will respond. Like on YouTube, if they get nasty, I will respond to them so that they can at least see it, and I will say, "There is one thing that that I will tell you I'm taking great joy in doing, which is hiding your comment, reporting you, and blocking you from my channel in perpetuity." it's like if you don't like the content, like go navigate away from it. If you don't
Yeah,
like the way I'm
exactly.
handling somebody, navigate away from me. I
Yeah.
it you have the possibility of losing a viewer, possibly losing a viewer.
Oh well.
Right. I will tell you there is so, maintaining your own safety, I think maintaining your own boundaries is going to be much more important than this one person you might have lost.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean,
Absolutely. I mean, keep your
so
boundaries strong, and it's really self-love at that point too.
yeah, you are vibrating though, Jasmine. What are you thinking?
I'm vibrating.
Boom! I'm watching you move back. Your head. Oh,
She
was
said I'm
that?
vibrating.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Do
know
you,
what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to shift my body enough to get some of the fan because it's like 40 degrees here today.
oh gosh.
But
Do you
also
know
try
it's
not
about?
to have it. Oh,
Yeah, it was
jeez.
about 40 here too. But I think we were using different
Oh, 40
units.
Fahrenheit,
So,
you know.
yeah, right.
No,
So
113
yeah.
Fahrenheit, something like that.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
But do you have thoughts? What were you?
I have many thoughts. I always have
Oh,
thoughts.
do we?
Um,
Should we break for a poem to get written, or what? What do you want to do?
hold on. Let me think.
All right.
That. Oh yeah, that's the quote. I was trying to think of a quote. I always like to follow the advice of I don't take advice or criticism from someone wouldn't take advice from.
Right.
It's a very consistent thing. Like if I'm online and I'm like, okay, this person who in their profile picture is holding a beer can with a freaking smoke hanging out of their mouth and they're writing statuses about hating their life and being in prison for freaking like homicide against their wife. I'm like, okay, do I really care about what this person thinks about my identity? No. Not to be a bitch or anything, but there's that level of if I respect someone, if I care about their opinion, if I see that they have good intent, if I see that, like you two in here, I would really respect your opinions. And there's a reason I'm asking you these questions and stuff is because I actually want to know
Yeah.
what your perspectives are. If it was someone just screaming hateful things and doing deplorable things all throughout their life, I probably wouldn't care what they had to think or what they had to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one thing that I wanted to add in there is just take criticism from those you would take advice from. If you have that as just a rule of life, oh my goodness.
I
So
love that,
peaceful.
Jasmine. I love that.
So really, just to bring it back around, right? We're looking at Betty here, who's thanking President Trump for helping women that know we were created by God. I'm not even really sure what all this necessarily means. I've read it 3 times now, just today, and I'm like, for helping the women that know we were created by God. Man, I don't even know. So this is somebody that I would probably not take advice from, and so it's really easy for me just to discard this criticism. Thank you, Betty.
Yeah, thanks, Betty. Because of Betty, we had an episode, so there's something thankful. Really, this is amazing. You know what? Honestly, there's always something positive with anything. I mean, because of Betty, we were able to discuss all kinds of stuff and what would we do. Right. And Betty has no idea that she was the fuel for a positive shift. So thanks, Betty.
No idea.
Thanks for helping us create an episode.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
Do we do a poem? Do you want to get a poem knocked out,
I
Lino,
did. I just wrote one right now as you were speaking.
You did not. Ooh, oh my gosh.
I did. It's called Echoes.
Okay.
Behind mountains, around a symphony, alone, or in the bathroom, my voice echoes. It comes back to me. And so in this wilderness, where chambers echo back my vibration, what I scream out, what I yell out, what I sing out, to echo back to me is, I love you. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, that
it just fell out of it.
everything up, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that was good. That was super good. I love how you
Thank-
bring echo chamber in there. That was
oh,
that
thanks.
was masterful. Certainly masterful. Dang.
Jeez.
Well, do we want to shut it down? Any last thoughts you've got, Jasmine? Lino?
Not at
Oh,
the moment.
that just put me in a different plane.
Oh, good.
Oh gosh.
Should.
I'm coming to my own conclusions around, the whole paradox of tolerance thing, because now I'm like, well, we are intolerant of intolerance to a degree. That's what laws are. That's what those types of things are.
I like that.
Right.
And we shouldn't let this whole idea of being intolerant of intolerance, cause us to behave in a way that we would not respect. And echoes. We squeeze a freaking lemon juice comes out. So what do you want to have come out of you? That sounds disgusting. I probably could have thought about that a little bit more.
Wow.
But
I
seriously,
can't believe that you brought up squeezing your lemons on the show. What do you...
gosh, squeezing your lemons, what comes out of you? Maybe they're right to freaking say that we're inherently sexual. No.
We're going to get banned from TikTok, Jasmine. Thanks.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, it's like what you put out there is what you get back. There are certain barriers, there are certain boundaries that you have that are in relation to your own energy, your own physical safety, what you allow into your space. And being kind to people does not remove those. It does not remove those boundaries. So that's where my brain is going after this conversation.
Yeah, that was super good.
And I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue being kind. I'm going to continue responding with people's best intentions, responding to their best intentions, or not responding at all. It depends where my energy is at, but I'm not going to throw hate back at people who throw hate at me, because that's just meeting dysregulation with dysregulation, and I'm not going to do that. And that doesn't mean lying down and accepting hate or, being just lying over and being beaten up. That's not what's happening. It's a totally different thing. So, thank you. Thank you for my
That was beautiful.
Fantastic.
It was a good summary. I loved it.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
I wasn't trying to summarize. I don't know.
Oh,
is there
whatever
any
it was.
final words of hope or any final bits of advice that we want to give based on this conversation?
Words of wisdom. Gosh, I think I would still end up with what we were saying before. What I was saying before was, if you don't like how other people advocate, you will need to go and do your own advocacy.
Yeah.
Or just go back to a Martin Luther King quote. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Yeah. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
There you go.
I would love you to send that to me in a message, by the way. Just the link for that. I'd love to go over it a few times.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So what did we say? We wanted to leave people with something that they could do. What was that in relation to? Gosh, I was a bit more clear-headed when I brought that up.
Something
I don't remember.
Do?
Was it something that they could do, or like a piece of hope?
Oh, I think that's somewhat hopeful, though, to be able to say that, listen, each of us has, I liked your relationship of you relating intolerance or not tolerating, you say it, that laws were actually intolerance right there. So
yeah,
that justice doesn't exist if you, without a form of intolerance. So I thought it was good.
That's true. Awesome.
I don't know if I hit on the last thing that I was thinking in my brain, but like I said, I'm probably running on about 25% CPU up here today. So
bring it up next week.
Hopefully I've made sense. Oh my gosh.
Yes,
you
absolutely.
Tell me. No,
absolutely. All right. Well, let me go. I'll do our outro then and
all right.
Shut it down. It was a good show. Thanks for
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and read the outro. So obviously we can talk about this for hours, because as soon as we hang up for you guys, we're going to talk about it for 2 more hours. But
No, you've got some macaroni and cheese to make, Amethysto.
yeah, right. I've got to go make mac and cheese. But
Yeah.
if you have requests for future topics, please let us know by leaving a comment, in the notes below. We might talk about it if it's a good one, and we will absolutely shout out to you shout out that you were the one who had the idea. So, thank you for joining in on the conversation. Thank you, Jasmine, and thank you, Lino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We think everybody here is pretty cool for wanting to focus on our shared humanity. So we're sending you lots of love. See you next week.
Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can. Woo!
Yeah.
Bye,
Beautiful.
everyone.
Good night.